That's so beautiful. Thank you for the wonderful music. Thank you all for having me back again. What a joy it is to be with you. What an honor it is to be here. It is Black History Month, isn't it? Yes. Some folks would like to see that go away. But some of us have some dogged determination in us not to let that go by the wayside. So I'm just going to give you a couple things that I think are important. Today is the birth date of Frederick Bailey Douglass. His name was Bailey when he ran, how about we change that? When he removed himself from bondage, he took on the name Douglass instead of using his name Bailey. I'm always hoping those Baileys weren't my English relatives that held him. Yeah. So if you don't know Frederick Douglass, you should. Most pictured person of the 19th century. Is it the 19th century? The 1800s? That's the 19th century, yeah. Somehow he understood the medium better than anybody else. His pictures everywhere. Another notable thing, the 15th Amendment was ratified on this date in 1870, guaranteeing rights to vote regardless of race. And Jackie Robinson became the first black player in Major League Baseball to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame on this date in 1962. All right, so that's enough for the Black History moment. But I have to get it in there. Listen, sometimes it's just got to be done. So the title of this sermon is The Ripple of Life, Transforming Anger and Hatred into Love and Understanding. And I was brought to this by reading the kind of talking points that was sent to me by Dr. Maureen, Reverend Dr. Maureen. Here's this one-sentence affirmation. I am ever mindful of the ways my life force ripples out into the world. And here's this reading that I want to share with you just before I drop into the sermon. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. marched in downtown Chicago against the Vietnam War on March 25th, 1967, a few months after he and Thich Nhat Hanh met, he did so under a banner in English and Vietnamese that read, and I quote, "Men are not our enemies. If we kill men, with whom shall we live?" End quote. Thich Nhat Hanh and Dr. King shared the insight that it is not other people who are our enemies. Instead, our enemies are anger, resentment, hatred, fear, and discrimination. It was by concentrating on this insight that Thich Nhat Hanh, Sister Chan Kong, and their young social workers in Vietnam were able to stay neutral and not take sides during the war. I quote again, "The path of not hating the enemy," end quote, "is a profoundly spiritual practice." Dr. King once said that if we have enough spirituality and ethics, we'll be able to replace hate with love. That's serious, right? That's a big if, though. Folks have to cultivate their practice. Here's the science of the mind point that I thought you all would like. Science of the mind teaches that our thoughts create our reality. What we pay attention to is what is real to us. In psychology, this is called biased attention, a type of confirmation bias where we selectively focus on information that confirms our views while ignoring or discounting views that relate to others and not ourselves. All right. So there's a lot that could be said, and you all didn't give me a 3-hour lecture period, so I'm going to get into this sermon. Let us begin by embracing our affirmation. I am ever mindful of the ways my life force ripples out into the world. Right? So today we delve into a profound truth illuminated by the wisdom of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Thich Nhat Hanh. The understanding that our true enemies are not other people, but the anger, resentment, and hatred residing within us. In this exploration, we remind ourselves that our perceptions shape our reality. When we change the way we perceive the world, we create space for compassion, authenticity, and unity to flourish. As we embrace the teachings of science of the mind, we recognize that our thoughts shape our experiences. Each person's perception is colored by their own narrative, crafted through family, culture, and history. What if we begin to challenge the stories that what is going on with tongue-tied today? Challenge the stories that sow the seeds of division and separation. Hey, there's always another way. Instead of isolating ourselves with narratives of us versus them, we can embrace a more encompassing story, a story that fosters empathy and connection. In psychology, we've learned about confirmation bias and how it can shape our reality. We gravitate towards information that aligns with our own beliefs while dismissing what does not serve us. This selective focus can hinder our ability to connect with others. If I am black and you are white, it shouldn't matter. But if you have something that separates you from the other person based on the narratives we've been told, based on the history of our nation, right? These things can be a hindrance to true union with others. Let us not ignore the narratives we've learned, but examine and transform them instead. The spiritual practice of loving our enemies, the radical spiritual practice of not hating our enemies, invites us to transform anger and hatred from energies that divide into forces that unify and heal. The words of Thich Nhat Hanh remind us that love is not just an emotion, it is an active choice. Love is an action word, right? Young men, remember, love is an action word. You don't just tell somebody you love them, you show them. Young and old, we need to remember that, right? Oh, I love you, baby. You my sugar kin. Ooh, I'd do anything for you. Meanwhile, you never rub their feet. You never take the trash out without being asked. You never, never, never. Show somebody you love them by doing something for them. Not seeking something in return, just out of that deep sense of love for them, right? Love is an active choice, a practice that we should be engaging in daily. Dr. King said it succinctly: hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. When we encounter anger, resentment, or discrimination, instead of seeing these as insurmountable barriers, we can view them as energies that exist within all of us. And my own life tells a story of that. I was an angry black man in Harlem. I was pissed off that my white relatives stole our family land in Louisiana because my grandfather had the audacity, a white man, to marry a black woman. They couldn't stand it, and they literally chased him and his children off their land in Louisiana, Point Coupé Parish, a little town called Fodoche. It's on the Mississippi River. And sent them down to New Orleans. You and your colored wife, y'all could live down there. But how dare you? You had no right. And your hatred was devastating to my family. So I had that narrative and all the things. I drove with my parents from New York to New Orleans in 1966 or 67. Can't remember. It's fuzzy now. It's so back in time. But my dad pulled into a gas station, and a young man that looked like Gomer Pyle. Y'all remember Gomer Pyle? Yeah. You seen it on TV Land? You see Gomer Pyle. Gomer Pyle came up to the window, and he said to my father, who had just run for Congress and was an assistant attorney general for the state of New York, probably a 65-year-old man. Boy, we don't serve your kind here. There's an end gas station around the corner. And I said, Mommy, what did he say to Daddy? And she covered my mouth real quick. Because it was Alabama. In Alabama in those days, that could have gotten us in serious trouble. So I had angers. Malcolm X dead, Martin Luther King dead, cities on fire, my beloved Harlem, being destroyed by the aftermath of the uprising. Newark, New Jersey went from 1967 all the way to when Cory Booker, now senator from New Jersey, was the mayor of Newark. It took more than 40 years to get a supermarket in Newark, New Jersey, because during the uprising in Newark, the supermarkets were burned and looted. No supermarket in New Jersey's largest city for more than 40 years. You understand the disparity. Things were so different once upon a time. The average income gap between black and white folks in 1968 was $12,000. It now sits at $102,000. The average income that black folks and white folks live with is night and day apart. We're not living the same lives, people. Not in any sizable, conceivable reality. Black folks have literally nothing in the bank, as some European Americans or white folks, and we won't name names, but last time I was here, I said something about those Teslas. Trade them in. Trade them in. It speaks about your righteousness as a human being. You are what you consume. You are what you consume. So I'm about creating a world that works for everyone. When we speak of creating a world that works for all, who defines what work means? This question leads us to examine the stories we tell ourselves. See, building a beloved community doesn't happen by happenstance. It'll only happen with intentionality. It only happen when Jew and Gentile, Palestinian and Israeli, right? Irish Catholic, Irish Protestant. Black man, white man in South Africa and the United States. Latino and Asian. It will only happen when we as a human family decide, well, this is just the outer exterior of a spiritual inner inside, the God within. What are we doing being enemies, acting unkind to one another? Have we lost our minds? Well, obviously we have, because look at the state of our world. So it's essential that you all be the light, right? That you all take your light and let it shine bright everywhere you go. For spiritual growth, it requires us to scrutinize the stories we've been told. For spiritual growth, it means that, see that flag in the corner? I served the United States Navy for a time, but do I really feel good about stars and stripes and bombs and the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting? I ain't singing no more songs about warfare. I want to sing about don't worry about a thing. I want to sing about love, love, love. Right? We need to rearrange what we've been told. It's not that the United States in and of itself is somehow a bad nation amongst the nations of the world. We've done amazing things. We also have participated in heinous things. And we've got to speak the truth and deal with the truth. As a spiritual community, our role in some measure, right? Because I heard what our practitioner told us this morning, but we got to take care of the self. This is healthy narcissism. You got to take care of yourself so you can be good for others. But it's the role of those who have the light, who have the love, who have God-centered life in their mind, body, and spirit to tell a fuller, more inclusive story that reflects the complexities of our shared humanity. We must ask ourselves whose voices are being amplified, who gets to write the narratives, who gets to guide social norms. Let's work together to ensure that every voice is heard and valued, reminding ourselves that empathy is the bridge to understanding. All right. In conclusion, let us commit to embracing the flow of our life force, understanding that each ripple impacts the greater ocean of humanity. We cannot change the outside world without first transforming our inner landscape. Instead of allowing the fears and hate to dictate our responses, let's embrace the power of love, the power of spirit to direct all we do in love. Amen? Amen. I know. Y'all didn't give me 3 hours. I know.